that night the sky had grown ominous as a rumble of thunder howled like an injured beast, followed by flashes of lightning that seemed to slice open the dark clouds as the torrential rain gushed forth like blood pouring from its wounds. Outside the condominium, now an eerie silhouette that masked the building's attractive appearance, a yellow taxi pulled up and a small figure alighted. Running across to the main entrance, trying to escape the downpour, Naomi fumbled with the key, but it kept slipping out of her trembling hands. Finally, she managed to open the door and entered the lobby, a welcoming contrast to outside with its warm and inviting glow that she chose to ignore. Climbing the stairwell, rainwater dripping from her hair, a parallel to the tears that were beginning to trickle down her face. The realizations of what had taken place in these last several days were now prominent in her mind. The blanket of mist that had enveloped her, concealing her actions and making her unable to acknowledge what she'd been made to do, had been lifted. Apart from having a fondness for Fox Mulder, she had strongly believed he was her soulmate, and it was this connection that had been able to break the spell that had been cast over her, just enough to stop herself from harming him. Finding herself beside him in her bed, only seconds away from slitting his throat with a kitchen knife, Naomi had suddenly felt physically sick and in complete shock when she realized she'd almost committed a horrific murder. She'd been unable to comprehend just why she'd discovered herself in this terrible situation, and her mind had been a blank after that. The only thing she did remember was rushing to get dressed and leaving the room via the fire escape outside of the window. After reeling from that major discovery, more of her own memories had begun to seep through as the spirit of Kuchisaki temporarily lost the ability to control her. Now she knew the reason why she'd almost taken Mulder's life. It had been the spirit's lust for revenge on her husband's soul, who, after possessing her own, had used her like a puppet in order to try and make her carry out her murderous intentions. As she stepped into the condo and made her way to the main lounge, Naomi was also made aware of those moments when she and Mulder had been bound together in an act of passion and became unsteady as a wave of revulsion washed over her. She really liked Mulder, and in another life would have happily enjoyed making love with someone as kind as him, but certainly not in the perverse way Kuchisaki had. Disturbed by the fact the spirit had abused them both in such a way, she staggered over to the mirror, which was now casting a translucent glow in the darkened room. "Show yourself!" she screamed, eyes burning into her own reflection. "Come on, let me see the thing that has been hiding in me, forcing me to bend to its will, so I almost killed someone I cared about." As if to taunt her, the mirror remained unchanged, and only her image stared back at her. Wild-eyed, with streaks of makeup running down her face due to the tears that had fallen, hair now uncombed and bedraggled, she looked like a madwoman. "Show yourself, you bitch!" Slowly the reflection began to shimmer, and the next moment Kuchisaki appeared in all her horrific glory. Her mutilated mouth would have been sneering in contempt at the woman who had the audacity to summon her, if it had been possible to do so. "He may have escaped me for now, but think of all the others I've had the pleasure of knowing." Remembering the information about the legend Mulder had shown her, Naomi shivered as it now began to become clear. "Bloody Mary! It was you!" "Oh, please, say it 3 times, Kuchisaki teased menacingly. Naomi heard the cruel words penetrating her mind and shuddered in horror, because now she knew some of her victims had been close to her heart. "Why, so you can murder me like you murdered my fiancé and sister and all those other people?" "Now he was delicious, and you did such a wonderful job, Naomi, helping me to slice his throat like a stuck pig." Before the woman could utter any kind of a reply, the spirit added, "Your sweet sister was yet another female who dared to call me forth, just like all those others I encountered on my travels. After my husband intervened and I became trapped in my mirror, it was a blessing to discover I could move into any reflection, as it allowed me to meet so many lovely young women who were blessed with the beauty I once had, before Yukayo destroyed my looks. Just one swift cut with his sword was all it took. But I guess he didn't feel his handiwork was complete until he beheaded me as well." Closing her eyes, allowing the torrent of pain to engulf her in its wake, she faced the hideous image again. "And you possessed me because you needed to be in corporeal form to carry out the death sentence of another reincarnation. Naomi asked, her voice trembling.
Let me finish telling you my tale, Naomi,
the spirit began in a sing-song voice. It was similar to the way her mother had sounded before reading her a bedtime story as she had every night when she'd been a child, and it made the woman cringe.
Once upon a time, there was an innocent woman like yourself, only she fell in love with a jealous and possessive man who wanted to own her completely. So he took her whenever he desired to satisfy his insatiable lust. She was terrified, yet consumed by his power over her, and so submitted her heart and soul to him completely. Then one day a handsome prince came to rescue this pitiful maiden from the evil warrior. Their plan was to run away together, but on one fateful day the husband discovered the lover's plight, and in his jealous rage murdered her in front of her mirror. This very mirror, in fact. Alas, in this fairy tale, no one lived happily ever after. So now you can see why I decided to seek revenge for my brutal murder by killing reincarnations of my beloved Ukiyo.
Another memory of their passionate encounter became clear, and then it struck her like a slap in the face. Mulder had been the one who had instigated every move, not her. Only the act had been forceful and violent. Certainly not the way she believed he would ever act towards a woman. Naomi thought she had an explanation, but was terrified to think it might be right. Throughout the centuries, Kuchisaki must not only have regressed men who were reincarnations of her husband, making them believe they were reliving their past as him all over again, but also Ukiyo's soul itself was able to possess the man like Kuchisaki possessed her. "That's why Mulder seduced me," Naomi said, appalled. "You may have been afraid of Ukiyo, but you also brought him forth because you both craved each other's twisted love. You made innocent men like Mulder act out his past life as your possessive husband," she said bitterly. Laughter rang out loud and clear, almost deafening.
Innocent! My dear Naomi, none of these men are blameless, no matter how honest and gentle they seem to be. They were all Ukiyo once, and he was far from innocent.
"Then why did you have me kill my fiancé? He wasn't any reincarnation, so why did you force me to murder him?" Naomi demanded to know, tears evident once more.
"Why, you are my favourite, Naomi,"
the spirit said, as if she was praising a daughter of her own.
"No one else was going to claim your love like I did, certainly not some mere man. So I played out my little death scene with you and him, and it was exquisite."
"So because love destroyed you, then you want to destroy anyone else's chance for happiness," she replied, sickened by what she'd just heard.
"He made me this way,"
Kuchisaki stressed, beginning to get irritated. "But clearly you blame all men, and not just Ukiyo," she pointed out, realizing the hatred was so powerful in this spirit that she was actually seeking revenge on the male species as a whole.
"You don't understand,"
the spirit told her angrily. "Oh, I think I do," Naomi replied harshly, recalling another gem of information from the Bloody Mary myths that Mulder had shown her. Spirits were like wounded animals, lost and in pain, living the same tragedies and same vengeances. Something happened to them when they were alive that they couldn't control, and after their lives were brought to a horrific end, they became vengeful spirits, trapped in an endless loop, forever carrying out their unfinished business. Realizing that in this case it would be everlasting revenge, she decided that she must make Kuchisaki recognize the sheer pointlessness of it all, but first would approach her by trying to see her point of view, at least partly. "After your tale of woe, I admit I sympathize with that innocent woman whose husband murdered in a fit of jealousy," she said, aware of the cruelty she had suffered at his hands. Kuchisaki was completely taken aback by Naomi's words of understanding.
"You are the only mortal who has said this to me,"
she said, almost on the verge of thanking her. Unfortunately, though, this compassion was as far as the woman was going to allow herself to feel. "However, when you became this vengeful spirit, because of the sheer hatred you took with you at the moment of your death, those people you chose started suffering the consequences. Men who had the misfortune of being a reincarnation of your husband, or those that just got in your way, and women because they were blessed with the same beauty that you once had. But don't you see? You will carry on till eternity, continuously roaming through future centuries, and an infinite number of innocent people will die by your hands.
I believe it was your tender hands that ended one of these lives,
she corrected her in a mocking tone. Naomi took a deep breath, trying hard not to let the fury that was building up inside escape. She had hoped she was getting through to her, but the sad fact was Kuchisaki was going to remain obstinate and refuse to look beyond her narrowed vision. However, she was going to try one last time before she would let herself admit defeat. "You will never find peace, not this way," she said, praying it would make her listen to reason. In answer, the reflection's eyes narrowed in disgust, although the grotesque mouth could not display the same emotion.
"You tried your best, Naomi. I'll grant you that,"
Kuchisaki said evenly.
"However, I'm going to require your assistance once more, as I believe there is a certain man out there who thinks he's escaped my wrath. He is very much mistaken, and I intend to make him realize this."
Feeling a heavy pressure starting to build up inside her head, Naomi realized to her horror that the spirit was doing its damnedest to take possession of her body. Once that happened, and she found herself completely at its mercy again, it would be her hands that would be responsible for ending this man's life. "No!" she screamed, fighting for control.
"Stupid girl,"
Kuchisaki said with disdain.
"You can't stop me."
"Well, I did before," she reminded her, continuing to struggle against the powerful force that was trying to penetrate her very soul. Clasping her hands to her head, she yelled, "And I'll do it again!"
"Will you now?"
The spirit was enjoying watching the woman writhe around in her attempt to prevent it from taking her over, but she was getting weaker and weaker and would very soon become her willing accomplice. Naomi could feel it trying to overpower her, but was damned if she was going to be defeated. There had been a time she'd managed to become lucid, when she'd almost killed him once before, and it seemed her deep feelings for him had prevented this from happening. "No!" she screamed at the top of her lungs. "You are not signing Mulder's death warrant! I won't let you!" With her last ounce of strength, she lunged at the mirror. "I love him!" she yelled. Pulling off its hook, she stared one last time at Kuchisaki's hideous face. "Let me release your tortured and twisted soul once and for all!" she cried out, hurling it onto the wooden floor. After surviving for thousands of years, Naomi was the first and last person to witness it finally shatter on impact, before she collapsed from sheer exhaustion into a crumpled heap beside the mirror, its heart now broken forever. It was still dark when Naomi came round and discovered herself lying on the floor beside the fireplace in her lounge. Looking up, she noticed the first signs of daylight beginning to creep in, casting eerie shadows in the room. Slowly coming to her senses, she stumbled to her feet, allowing herself to remember what had happened during the night. Her head ached painfully so, but at the same time, deep inside, she felt a growing relief that she'd somehow managed to smash the enchanted mirror which had imprisoned Kuchisaki's vengeful spirit. Staring down at the shattered remnants of what was left, she let out a heavy sigh. "May you rest in peace now," she whispered, closing her eyes in prayer. Suddenly a wave of nausea hit her, and she fell against the wall where the mirror had once hung in all its magnificent splendour. The throbbing pain began to increase, and she groaned aloud, begging for it to cease. Ignoring her pleas, it became so intense that she was unable to think clearly, and it was only then that she recognised the horrifying truth of what was happening. She could feel it twisting and turning, grasping at her very essence and choking the life out of her. "Oh, God!" she gasped. "She can't have—" But the voice she thought she'd never hear again echoed in her mind, forcing itself to be acknowledged.
"Did you honestly think you could win?"
"Please," Naomi began helplessly. She'd let herself foolishly believe that she could bring the spirit's wrath to an end by breaking the object that had been imprisoning it. Only now it had escaped, this time aiming its revenge on the one person who tried to stop it.
"You love your face!"
Kuchisaki said, full of sarcasm as it read her thoughts.
Oh yes, after losing your soul completely, I will become you for the rest of your natural-born life, my sweet Naomi. So be a good girl and surrender to me.
As the words sank in, she knew the spirit was going to seal her fate, and soon, unless... Without a word, Naomi removed her watch and stamped on it, cracking the plastic cover. She didn't know how much time she had left, and she knew she must act fast. Even though her head was pounding and her insides screaming, she swallowed down the bile that had risen in her throat and took deep breaths, forcing herself to be calm. Hurriedly she checked all around the room just in case there were any more reflections, any other possible means of escape. All the while she could hear Kuchisaki asking her what her intentions were. Well, she was going to prove to this spirit once and for all just how clever she was. Refusing to give her an answer, she then cleared her mind completely, and out of meditation she tried several times back in Japan, and as a result it left Kuchisaki with nothing but an empty void to listen to. Now she knew what she must do. Kneeling down, Naomi carefully picked up the broken bits of mirror and placed them into the fireplace, leaving the solitary piece on the floor. Then, after lighting a match, she watched as the flames engulfed it. Only then did she allow a single thought to emerge, as she pictured Mulder in her mind's eye. But as soon as she'd done this, Kuchisaki's hatred for him began welling up inside. However, she ignored this feeling by completely concentrating on the kindness he'd shown her when they'd first met. "Please, find the happiness you deserve with Scully," she murmured softly, as tears started to course down her cheeks. Realizing it was something she was never going to share with him, or indeed anyone else, ever again, she picked up the broken shard that had been left on the floor, and with deliberate, swift movement slashed both of her wrists. Mercifully, the pain was brief. Maybe the spirit had known what the outcome would be all along, and had taken pity on her this time. "Rest now," she whispered. As she lay on the floor, blood continued to pour from self-inflicted wounds and pooled all around her. She managed a faint smile before darkness descended upon her for the very last time. Naomi had been proven correct. Since she'd taken her life without any anger in her heart, Kuchisaki's vengeful spirit, which had held her prisoner for so long, was cleansed and released from her torment, as was her own soul. Now both could finally find peace at last.